Hi everyone, another progress video for me. This is Zapier day 6, and today I'll be showing you what I did in terms of code, but it was more important what I did in terms of communication with Zapier support. So in terms of coding, it was kind of uneventful. So I had the addition of block and chunk endpoints and their respective input fields, as well as some changes for account key arrays and account ID arrays. So basically what I did is create these account key array fields as a dictionary, because if you remember last time I tried to do it with basically an array of objects which they don't support yet. So my only option was to create a dictionary where the key would represent the account ID and then the value would represent the public key, and then just map that out to an object containing an account ID and a public key, extracted the way that the Near API JS library supports. And for account ID, just a simple list of strings, so that way the user can input multiple account IDs. Although I would have preferred if it was an array of objects, because then you can basically make a helper text and default value and placeholder item per input, which usually is more user friendly. And then of course I added tests for the block and chunk endpoints. Here you can see that the chunk field can have an ID, chunk hash, or a combination of block ID and chart ID, which is again what the Near API JS client accepts as input. I've also skimmed over the former code that I wrote to basically, in some places I didn't add the network selection field, so I went back and fixed that, and in other places the order was something that I didn't like, where basically the network selection or the block ID or finality field were on the bottom or somewhere in the middle, and I would prefer them to be always on top. Like the network selection field should always be the primary or the first field you see, then block ID or finality, and then the more specific fields. So that was something I did. And then in terms of talking with Zapier support, I basically created a request for a feature, or rather they did, based on my feedback, and they're going to be adding the functionality to have arrays of objects as input fields, which is going to be more ergonomic for end users when they're using any integration. And basically they're talking to their developers right now, figuring out how and when they're gonna do that, and they'll get back to me in a couple of days, or at least that's what they said, so I'm hoping it'll be quick before I push this, or before I basically request a review for this whole integration, because I would like the user experience to be better than just inputting a dictionary. And I'll show you what that looks like. So basically it looks like this, where you can input account ID as the key, and then the key or the public key as the value, and then you would have a blank field, which doesn't seem very natural to me. So this is, as you can see, this works fine, but not very ergonomic. And another thing that I would like them to change is changes in block. I want chunk details. Would basically be, for right now, I had to make all these 3 fields not required, so optional. And because you can't have selective requirements, so I can't say if a user inputs a block ID, then they have to like add a shard ID as well, or if they add a chunk hash, then they don't have to input a block or shard ID, which is basically how the API works. So that would be something I prefer, and it would be better for the user, so he wouldn't have to know how the API works, like go to the documentation. It would be clearly defined here, but it doesn't work like that. So that might be something that I'm gonna ask about and see if Zapier can do something about that. That would be it. I'm hoping to do more code stuff and finish all the endpoints tomorrow, and then after that I'm hoping to add some other functionality in terms of transactions and stuff like that, so enabling the input of private keys and then using those to assign transactions. And tomorrow is also going to be, or I'm planning to do method parsing, and I'll see how I can basically help the user input parameters and choose methods, because I am able to parse a method, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to dynamically change the UI for the field input. But I'll see tomorrow. If I don't have that option, I'll again check with Zapier if we can do something about that. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye.